Hello everyone, Dalton here with MTGRepublic, and today I'm bringing you a deck tech of my Junk Midrange build, which I've used quite a bit on the channel here, so you guys probably have seen it played a bit, but in this video I'm just going to go over how I designed it to work and see if anybody else wants to maybe run this deck. It's a good one. Anyway, of course we're going to start out with main board and start out with mana base, so go with our basics first. And we got four plains, 4 swamp, as well as, finally, you can probably guess this, 4 forest. So I like to run 12 of the basics. You know, the deck doesn't get mana screwed too often, and I feel if I'm gonna run as many basic lands as I can, and the deck still performs quite nicely. I don't get mana screwed very often, so it works out well. On to Shockland, I run 2 Temple Garden, 2 Overgrown Tomb, and you'll never guess this, 2 Godless Shrine. So yeah, still pretty basic as far as this goes. And then, you know, 2 Temple of Plenty, as well as 2 Temple of Silence, and there's a little variation here since the green-black Scryland hasn't come out. As of now, I've got 2 Golgari Guild Gates. Those were Overgrown Tombs, but I ended up trading those, and they will be replaced with the green-black Scryland as soon as that comes out. But of course, you know, that's not out yet, so dealing with what I've got at the moment. And here we go to our spells in our main board. Firstly, I've got 2 Elspeth, which are actually really nice in this deck. You would think that in a non-control deck, Elspeth wouldn't work all that well. And the neg 3 in most situations really sucks, but the +1 and the ultimate are just so good that it makes up for it. I mean, the amount of 1/1s can really get overwhelming, even if you end up never ultimating Elspeth. And it's just a great card to have. Also, I apologize for the dogs barking in the background. Not much I can do about that. So Elspeth's actually the only Planeswalker I run. The only sorceries I run are 2 Read the Bones. I had a Johnny's in for the Read the Bones, but a Johnny didn't perform so well in the deck. And I decided Read the Bones was really good for some draw power. And of course, you can scry through the first 2, so you can really... You can look, that's pretty powerful. You can get a lot of the times the card that you want through Read the Bones if you scry the first 2 away. And so yeah, it's a great card. The only enchantment and artifact is Whip of Erebos. You know, not much to say about Whip. It's just an overall great card. It's great against removal because you can just whip it right back. It gives all your creatures lifelink, which is immensely powerful, as one would expect, especially in a deck like this with huge creatures. I mean, once you get whip out in a big creature, unless they remove it, it's hard for them to come back after all that lifelink. The removal instance, which are for Putrefy, that's fairly basic. You know, destroy target creature or artifact, which is actually pretty nice against like decks that run Whip of Erebos. Of course, I can see Hero's Downfall running in this deck quite well. That's an obvious choice, but I decided not to use those because Putrefys are more cost effective and essentially same thing, minus of course Planeswalkers, but typically I can deal with those. Sometimes an Elspeth will give me an issue, but a lot of the times it won't. And so here we are on to creatures. I'm going to start out with my mana ramp, which I have quite a bit of. 4 Sylvan Caryatid, which are amazing. The 0/3 is actually really nice, you know, especially against decks like Red Deck Wins, which, you know, isn't huge in the meta, but still, anytime you go against a Red Deck Wins, you know, they run a bunch of 2/2s, or any deck that runs 2/2s at all. Sylvan Caryatid brick walls them, plus that add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. That is a lot of the reason why I can run so many basic land in this deck. Sylvan Caryatid, I would say hands down, probably the best card in the deck, because the mana production is great and it can brick wall 2/2s. So it's an awesome card. It really is. And the price is it's well warranted. And then, other mana ramp, which is 4 Elvish Mystic. I can see taking these out for something like Thoughtseize, another 1-drop that is really, really great. Because Thoughtseize is a great card, but you know, Elvish Mystic, you know, it helps you get like for example, on turn 3 you can have like a Blood Baron of Vizkopa, which is the next card that's coming out. Just for things like that, you know, it gives you slight acceleration. And sometimes, you know, a turn 3 Blood Baron, depending on the deck you're going against, can straight up be enough to win the game. Blood Baron's a great card. Lifelink protection for white and for black, which is, you know, mono black being the #1 deck in the meta at the moment. That is absolutely amazing in the current meta. So, I mean, plus Esper, you know, it's black and white. Of course, they've got some, they can sometimes find ways to get rid of it with some blue, but yeah, it's really good. Of course, the top 2 decks in the meta, it's very good against, so that's another reason why its price is still really high. Then another 2 of, which is Mistcutter Hydra. You know, a lot of people say, well, why would you run this main board? It should be the sideboard against mono blue, but late game, I have a ton of mana by the end of the game typically, and Mistcutter Hydra is just great to use up all that mana and become a really huge creature, and plus the haste makes it amazing. The haste really wins games, as if you've watched some of the videos on this channel, some of the matches, you can see the haste win multiple games. So I mean, it's a really underrated card in the main board. And I can see running it main board even when the protection for blue is amazing. Plus they can't be countered, that's good against Esper. So if they happen to run any counter spells. So yeah, it's just an overall good card. And then we have Advent of the Wurm, which is awesome against the more aggro decks. You know, they swing in to what they think is an open field, then you know, Advent. Of course, it's actually an instant, but it's essentially a creature with flash. 5/5 green worm with trample. Really great card, really cheap too, and 4-drop for a 5/5 trample. Nothing to complain about there at instant speed. It's a well-rounded card and it works really well in the deck. Then we've got Obzedat. Obzedat is good. There's a lot of instant speed removal in the meta at the moment, so that kind of hurts it. But of course, Obzedat's great. You know, it enters the battlefield. You gain 2 life, they lose 2. If they happen to not be able to remove it, it can be crippling, and plus it swings for 5, which is great. Also, it combos really well with the Whip. If you whip back Obzedat, whereas Whip would typically exile the creature, Obzedat is exiled by its own ability before the Whip comes into effect, and it overrides the Whip's ability, which allows it to come back every turn. So it has some great synergy with Whip. And speaking of Obzedat synergy, Trostani is really good. It's another really underrated card. Every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. So, you know, if you've got an Obzedat, every time it enters, you gain 5 from Trostani, plus 2 from Obzedat. That's 7 life every upkeep. Really good combo in this deck, and it wins a lot of games. It didn't come out on video nearly as much as it happens just in playtesting, but yeah, when it happens, it's great. It feels really good to have like 80 life at the end of a game or something ridiculous like that, which has happened with the Obzedat Trostani combo, especially with a little help from the Whip. This deck is really powerful when it comes to the life gain, and it's really hard for a lot of decks to deal with that. So, onto the playsets of creatures. They've all been 2 of so far. I run 4 Reaper of the Wilds. It's a really good card and it's really underestimated. You know, whenever another creature dies, you scry, which is amazing. So, you know, if you happen to run a lot of removal, which, of course, the 4 Putrefys aren't too much, but anytime a creature dies in combat, or any other time, you know, you get that scry, and if multiple creatures die, you scry multiple times. So it can be really powerful. I've scryed a ton off of it, and it's won me many a game. Plus, you can give it the Death Touch and the Hexproof. The Hexproof is very valid with the amount of removal in the meta at the moment. And so it's just a really powerful card, and I think it's really underestimated. Also 4 for a 4/5, not much to complain about there, especially with all the extra perks you get. And then everybody's favorite card, Desecration Demon. I run a 4 of that. Really self-explanatory. 4-drop for a 6/6. And if you get this out on, you know, turn 3, which can, of course, happen with the deck running Sylvan Caryatids and Elvish Mystics, it can be a game winner. It can be very, very overwhelming for the opponent, and it's just hard to deal with. If they run something like Elspeth, of course, you know, you're going to want to side that out. It's not very powerful against, you know, white weenies, things like that. Things that can sack a lot. It's just not that great. But creatures that aren't, decks that aren't so creature heavy, it is a great card. And that's actually it for main board. Now for sideboard, I run one Mistcutter Hydra, which I feel like is self-explanatory. You know, sided in against blue. Blue isn't as valid as it was in the Theros meta, but still, it's a great card to have. For example, if I have to side out my Desecration Demons, I can sometimes side in Mistcutter. Also a really good card against the low drop decks, mono blue, mono black, things like that. Gaze of Granite, destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost X or less. That's really good, you know, play against mono blue, it's 6 mana, destroy their entire field. Or 7, destroy their entire field if they have a Master of Waves out. So yeah, that's really good. It's good against a lot of stuff, you know. With mono black, you can get rid of even like their underworld connections and things like that. But I only run one of those. I've considered picking up more, but I feel that for it to be really effective, it's got to be a lot of mana, and a lot of the time, you know, you're only going to want to draw this late game. So I feel like one of is substantial. Then Selesnya Charm, it's a really good card. I feel like it's one of the best removal in Standard for gods, which a lot of people don't realize. You know, you can exile that creature as long as, assuming their devotion's up. But yeah, it's really powerful. Plus, you can get a 2/2 for 2. I mean, there's really no complaining about Selesnya Charm. It's a great card. Then we have Devour Flesh, which is high quality. I only run one of those. I've considered running more, but it does well whenever I side it in. And it's just a great card, and it's a great common also. And then we've got 2 Golgari Charm. I find that this is really good against, you know, of course, decks that run low drops, decks that depend on Elspeth, things like that. You know, it's essentially 2-drop Supreme Verdict if they run all 1/1s or token creatures, things like that. It's a really good card, and also the enchantment destruction is really good. Yeah, it's just a good card. Plus, if they happen to run like a Supreme Verdict, you can regenerate each creature you control, or even, you know, counter target removal spell, which is, you know, good. It's a well-rounded card, and I feel like it's underrated also. And then I run a playset of Doomblade, which are self-explanatory. Everybody knows what Doomblade does. I've considered running the main board, but the thing is, with mono black being as rampant as it is, Doomblade isn't so powerful in the main board. So I put that inside, and if I happen to go against a deck that isn't running black, I side those in for whatever I decide to take out. And then that's actually all I have for the sideboard. I realize that there are 4 empty spots, but I can see running multiple things in that. I can see running 4 Dark Betrayal, which is, you know, a good pick. As I've said multiple times in the video, mono black is the top deck in the meta, and Dark Betrayal is really good. 1-drop, destroy anything, well, any creature in their deck. It's a good choice. Erebos is also good if you happen to go against life gain decks, which aren't too common in the meta. Let me see. You could run a lot of things there. Another Gaze of Granite, maybe another Mistcutter Hydra even. There are plenty of cards that you could put in here, and I just felt like I'd leave that up to whoever decides to be building this deck. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned a little bit about how I wanted to structure the deck, and we'll see you guys next time.